Hello once again. We are still in session 5, board development, and this subsection is dealing with training. So we talked a little bit about training in the last subsection, but this one we'll go right into it. And we're going to start off, because when you think about training, you think about, okay, we're going into the military. We're going through our boot camp stage. We have to learn how it is to be a soldier, what it is to be a soldier, or we are, integrating ourselves into college, and we need to learn what it is to be orientated to be a college student. So we have to go through the week or 2 weeks of orientation. So when we think about training, we typically think about, the newness of something, the newness of a person, the lack, if you will, of understanding of a said person or a said group and how to get them up to speed, training. So we'll start this conversation like that. When you have a board, a fully functional board, we spent a lot of time, a lot of sessions were devoted to discussion, in different aspects of training, and how to get the newbies up to speed. So this is the same thing, but it's more focused into how do we bring new board members up to a point where they can function. They can function as a productive member of the board itself, collective, because again, the collective makes the decision, and they need to be a productive member of the collective if the collective is to perform at an optimal level, right? So newbies, new board members, what's the right approach? What's the right method to go in training them and bringing them up to speed?
I think having a regular training program for all board members would be a great start. Because then when you get the new board members in, it doesn't feel like it's something being done just for them, right? That only they have to go through, and that the established board members also will have the feeling like, well, I don't have to go through it, because this is specifically for an introduction and orientation to the new board members. Like we've talked about before, there's a lot of this idea of muscle memory. Right.
Yeah.
You need to do something repeatedly before you actually get competence in doing it. A lot of times, having had one introductory session into something, I'm sure we've all gone through some kind of exercise program like this, where you got the free intro lesson, but then after that, it's up to you to continue it, and there's nobody there pushing you or nobody there to assist you. A lot of board members that are on boards right now probably need to have that refresher on a regular basis, and perhaps annually. And perhaps this is also a good time to do some of the other required housekeeping things that boards have to do or should be doing, such as going over the bylaws so that they know here's when you have meetings, here's when you have to show up, here's what your job description is, here's what you need to be doing. And then annually, probably you need to have a document that everybody signs off on, which is the conflict of interest statement. Continually reminding all board members that this is being done for the benefit of the community, and their duty of loyalty is to put the organization first, so that if they have ways in which they may personally be benefiting, they provide a service and they sell a product that the nonprofit can utilize and can buy. They have to be aware of the fact that, well, there are certain things that cannot happen as far as self-dealing, conflicts of interest. So to have every board member there signing off on the form for the conflict of interest, is going to be critical, and it probably should be part of this regular training session. Same thing with going over what the organization's Form 990 looks like, right? It gets prepared, the treasurer's probably got some role in it, and everybody just says, well, the treasurer understands all this, so we'll just let the treasurer take care of it, and then if they sign off on it, fine, we'll just sign off on it afterwards if we have to. If not, well, they'll just send it in, and that'll be it. But the board should be aware of what that form looks like and the things contained on that form. And in that form too, they also have a repeat of the conflict of interest policies that are necessary. And are all of the board members aware, and have they all agreed to the no conflict of interest approach? So,
I think that's important, and this kind of carries us over into the next subsection of this discussion, is continual training for existing board members. I love that, we should not, and we should be careful about siloing training. So, okay, new board members, you guys are over here, you get your new training, and then even if we do training, for the existing board members, you're over here, because it then gives them, the ones who have been there, tenured, an impression that, hey, well, I don't need to know that, but that, no, you might have forgot something, you know what I mean? And then it also gives the impression to the new board members, well, that information that they're learning, I'm shielded from it because, I'm not there yet, or, whatever they might have in their minds, when that neither could be farther from the truth. Both need the information from both sides. And I love that having, a collective training for everyone because there may be existing board members that only deal with the 990 like the treasurer, that might not deal with, the conflict of interest issue, when it comes to, galvanizing what they do in the public eye and how that impacts, the collective. They need that training, and so it's a lot of good that can come out of having those trainings together. In this area though, there's another identifier that I wanted to look at and kind of flesh out, is brainstorming on the type of training that occurs. I mean, we have standard board training, very important things, going over the bylaws, making sure that nothing might need to be reflected, looking at the mission, looking at the vision, conflict of interest policy, all those things are vital. But in a time that we're in right now, where we see a lot of, on the horizon change that's coming, how do we integrate, hey, we got to figure out this new board thing, right? We got to replace ourselves, and quite rapidly, and not just one or two. Like some boards, hey, we're all going to have to replace ourselves. How can we do this? And so in this current time, I think one of the things that might be, we might be able to flesh out is, hey, how do we bring this on in training and take on this to possibly give ourselves, our nonprofit, a smoother transition from us to another, whole set of folks that, all of them are new, and no one that was there before is there now. Having that training, and how might a board go about just entertaining that type of training, and what would be the steps you would say they should take in getting close to that?
I would look at it in the same kind of fashion as you would to just doing the training in general. And as an example, hopefully what we could have is a system or a training where it's not just the established board members saying, this is what you have to do, this is how you have to do it, this is the way we've always done it, and this is what, this is the mission from our perspective, this is the organization's operation structure from our perspective. But to have a two-way kind of communication, a lot of people have done these breakout sessions for the board members where the simple exercise of the obituary. You join this board, you support this organization because you have the mission at heart. So what would the world look like if this organization does its absolute best and now is not necessarily needed anymore because the need has been fulfilled? What would the obituary of this organization say? You know, kind of like we do this exercise in a lot of different capacities, right? We do it when we do career development. We say, looking back, when you retire, what would you like to have the world say that you accomplished, right? Before you even started. So you can have everybody participating in that respect. And then other things like, that I know I am severely remiss on. We talked about this, about social media. One of the things that the board member has to be is an ambassador for the brand, an ambassador for the mission, an ambassador for the organization. And that means telling the story. And more the story is being told through social media. So when we renew the board, we will be bringing on people who are native to the social media environment. Whereas those of us, I know I'm on a board that none of us are engaged in social media, right? I mean, because we're too old. Facebook is something that's still something that we're working with. We don't catch all of our emails even, and texting. Well, who looks at their phone constantly in our generation, right? So, the idea of being able to have the new board members being able to act as mentors of those kind of things, or teachers of those kind of things, to help the older board members understand how they can better incorporate social media and things that are new, technologically related, to the function and fulfillment of the mission of the organization. So I think that looking at it from that type of perspective, and then hopefully somebody's able to document what's going on. It becomes part of the training procedure. Maybe parts of it gets incorporated into the board manual, so that if you have something that happens, let's say, for whatever reason, a board member ceases to be able to serve, but not at the end of their term, so they have to be replaced midterm. You may not have the resources to conduct an entire board training for one replacement that comes in, but at least you have like a board manual that you could share with them to show them the basics of what needs to be done. And then hopefully in that situation, there will be someone who can mentor that person and be available to answer questions as they come up. Because if people are really, really into the mission and really serious about being on the board, they're gonna have a lot of questions. Because, and they're gonna have a lot of concerns. They're gonna be like, I don't know what to do. How do I find out? Or who do I ask? Who can I turn to? So, to have a formal mentorship structure would probably be good. Probably not something that most organizations would be able to develop, though. I mean, at least not in the next few years. Maybe over time it becomes more available. But in the meantime, just to have the current board members be available to answer questions and concerns, in the time that is not in the board meeting itself.
I agree with that. I'm gonna snatch one of Wayne's flags. I'm also not in social media, but we have the third to our crew is heavily involved in social media. So, but I'm the same way. I don't have the Facebook, the Instagram. My nieces and nephews have to help me with that. But that brings me to this when it comes to training. What would probably be a positive, and we can get your take on this, what might be a positive implementation into training is getting an expert in these new areas. Come in, talk to us about this. Like, what impact does it make? Okay, you're an Instagram kid, and you have so many, tell us about that. What impact did it have on your organization? What were you able to do? What were you able to communicate? How were you able to move a community? And so just getting these different experts in their field to come in and enlighten the entire board. And again, it might, because some of us might be hard as, a brick of ice, but some of us might be fluid. We might, okay, I can adapt to that. I can take a little bit on, and as a few take it on, it might gravitate or, enhance, the ability, if you will, of the other board members who might not necessarily be able to digest it fully, but they can take it in teaspoons, now and again by their fellow board members. So I think that would be a good implementation to training, bring in experts.
Oh, yeah, I think definitely when you think about a board, you think about certain types of people with certain skill sets that you want to have available and on that board, because then they can contribute those talents and those skills to the advancement of the organization. And I think we've constantly looked at it from an old school perspective. Forgive me for saying that, but it is kind of old school. Is there somebody that knows about accounting? Is there somebody that knows about marketing? Is there somebody that knows about finance? And these are the kind of skill sets that we look for. And many times, because we're not engaged in it, you and I are probably on board. If we were together, especially, and more like us, we would not have any idea that there's a relevance or need for a social media expert. We think marketing, but we think old school marketing. We don't necessarily look at, we need to get expertise in the organization and through the board in social media. And I think that becomes critical in this day and age, because one of the things that we're seeing, and I think nonprofits have to be aware of this greatly, is what does your social media presence look like? Because we live in the day and age where, for better or worse, there is a cancel culture out there. And if you post or you do something that's misinterpreted, it's gonna pop back. And you gotta know and be aware of that, because that's where the chatter's occurring. It's not in the people or even the supporters that you may know now that you have face-to-face dealing with. But eventually it'll get to them. And you have to be able to deal with that negativity. Especially if it's something that it wasn't even something that you intended to come up with. But somebody misconstrued it, and they basically make it their mission now to out you, and then to expose you and to tear you down.
And that brings up another point, because there's around the cancel culture, there has been, because again, I don't do the social media things, but I ask questions. Hey, niece, what happened to the actress that used to play in such and such? Oh yeah, they let her go. So you can make a mistake, right? And you need somebody, because we're human, and so to me, I tell the younger folks all the time, guys, gotta be careful. Cancel. Like, you're human too. You might make a mistake, and what comes around, what goes around comes around, kind of a thing. But how do you then, getting someone who can manage that for you? So knowing social media would allow you to, do that media, that management, okay, how do we come back out of this? Because everybody's fallible and everybody's, human. We're going to make mistakes. It's a part of our DNA. But the other element I wanted to touch on that was part of that is, and I just lost it. It was not part of the cancel culture, but it was part of the So I want to say this. I have so much, and I'm saying this, I'm preferencing this like this. This is like the segue. I have so much respect for the accomplishments of Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. I have so much respect for them. I say that because I want to talk about board membership and use Snoop Dogg as an example. Snoop Dogg was placed, and I think he still is, on a board. And someone asked me, why did they put Snoop Dogg on there? And again, that's one of my guys. I look up to him. Good father figure, good everything, in my eyes. But they thought it was from a different perspective, maybe from a musical perspective, maybe from a business perspective, maybe from an urban perspective. But I looked at Snoop Dogg and I looked at the organization. I said, I think they have him on there because of his eye. He's colorful. He's cultural. His presence, his brand, his style, his expertise, his design. I mean, his eye is probably one of the most influential eyes that we have in our culture today. I mean, when it comes to styles and how he influences society, you know, Calvin Klein and him stand next to each other when it comes to, you know, how they push style and the flavor of their brand. And I said, I think they have him there because of his designer eye, you know, like, and they said like Calvin Klein, and I said, yeah, like Calvin Klein. I don't think they have him there because of his music and his all the other kind of stuff. I think they had a void, and they needed to come up to the times, and they needed somebody who had their foot on the ground and had a lot of experience around what it is that connects to, you know, not only their generation, but the current generation and even the ones coming up, because he has such a dynamic eye that he can touch my generation, the kids under me, and even some of the folks over me. And so I would put him on my board as well. So that speaks to knowing what the board needs as time changes and as we go from decade to decade, because it will change. You know,
Sure.
I think that's important. Yeah.
And I think, you know, it brings out the idea that we need to have boards that reflect the constituencies that we serve. You know, I've been with quite a few organizations as a nonprofit board member. Some of them I'm still with, and sometimes during that training process, maybe if you have a formalized training session, take a picture. Take a picture of the board, and then actually look at that picture and look at who's there, and what backgrounds they represent, you know, what skill sets they bring, but also what diversity is being demonstrated by the organization itself at its leadership levels. We see so many organizations that serve in a good way, but their boards have no input from any of their constituents. Right? So some organizations, nonprofits in particular, will have a client representative or a beneficiary representative on the board. You know, someone that has actually received the services, is in a target market, and understands what the needs of those people are. Right? So that looking at the diversity of skills to bring that in, so that you actually know who it is that you're serving, and that helps you to perform your service so much better. The other thing about passing it over to the next generation is, I think more and more we're becoming aware of the idea that, you know, the organizational leadership should in many ways reflect the diversity of the constituents that we serve. Yeah, I've been a part, unfortunately, for better or worse, I've been part of a lot of organizations where the people who are being served and the people who are running the organization do not look at all alike. You know, it's kind of like, you know, here we are up here, and then here's everybody. You know, here's all the poor folks that we help down here. And when you look at that picture of who's on the board or who's in leadership positions, it is a very non-diverse picture, right? You got the majority culture up there, you got the wealth up there, you got people who have had privilege up there, but you don't see them developing those people who they say that they're all about to get to that level where they're too now participating in how the organization performs its services. So I think part of the board board management, board composition, board development is to constantly have an eye on diversity. You know, because somebody's going to call you out on it, right? I mean, and that could be very, very negative for your organization, right? So you need to kind of like try to get that process going as soon as possible.
That's oh my gosh, that's so powerful, because boards, nonprofits, we'll start with the nonprofits themselves, fill a void, if you will. in whatever community they find themselves in. And that void tends to be people-centric, targeting different groups, different communities, and be them, our Latino brothers and sisters, our Native American brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers and sisters, whoever they might be them our African American brothers and sisters, all of those groups, Italian Americans, whatever it might be, and asking the question though, like, okay, our homeless brothers and sisters, asking that's critical. Like, okay, so you're a board. Who's on your board, and do you have a representative that at minimum was from that background and can give some really important insight into that mission that you're striving to uphold, that vision, that the bylaws are the legs of, so that's really critical, and that's really deep, because even my experience in the boards that I've been engaged in, that's difficult to find. It's really difficult to find, and I don't think a lot of boards may not even be thinking about that. Like, how do we diversify our board to become closer to the communities that we're trying to serve? Wow, so that's something for, I guess, all of us to think about. I really, that's very powerful. That's real, and we talk about it a lot. But when you put it in practical terms, is it happening? You know what I mean? Is it really, really happening? And what's the initiative to make sure that it continues to happen, as things change? So I think that's part of, and that's gonna move us into some other areas, but that covers our training. But I think, aspects of this section, this subsection would be, the importance of involving everyone in training, not making individuals feel that they're different than others, but everybody collectively needs to improve and grow their acumen when it comes to how to perform their functions and duties as board members. And the other one is, don't stagnate training. Like, let training grow and change as our world and our years go by and the times change and the technology changes. Let training change at the same time. So, we'll see you next time. Okay.